we're dealing with two things. One is just that if you really think about it, if I had said 13 months ago that we would be sitting here today and the Fed would have hiked 500 basis points in 9 months, plus or minus, you would have thought it was crazy.
Investor Chamath Palihapitiya shared his views on the direction the economy is headed and what to expect from the recent development in AI during a fireside conversation with Global Alts. Chamath offers a distinctive perspective on the subject, especially with regard to AI, as he was present when AI took control of deep learning via Facebook's news feed. Chamath shares the opinion of the majority of GPT chatters who believe that the AI transition is only getting started with these new tools. Chamath disagreed because he thought that the earliest deep learning technologies, such as chatbots, would not be the true winners. The proprietary second layer of technology that learns how to use ChatGPT just a little bit better than all other competition will be the actual victors. Let's hear what Chamath has to say.
These are multi-trillion-dollar shifts in how the information economy and as a result the economy itself is going to work. Right now today you can generate using solar and wind energy that's effectively approaching zero. And it's cheaper than nat gas. And it's not just at the residential level, but it's also at the baseload power generation level. And so as a totality, you have the ability for 100 million US homeowners to effectively displace 1,700 utilities and all of that monopolistic behavior and regulatory capture. And so if all of a sudden you have free, abundant energy that you can collect from the sky and store in your garage and direct anywhere you want, you all of a sudden have the ability to solve problems via brute force that before you couldn't because they were boundaries of energy. Separately, we have found a way to transition Moore's law away from CPUs into these application-specific chipsets now that operate in a realm of machine learning and AI. And the cost of that is effectively going to zero because these reference designs now are so well understood, the software is so powerful now. And when you multiply these two things together, if you wanted to brute force, reverse engineer every single theoretical protein that binds to every other protein in your body, what was a multi-billion-dollar compute and energy problem is now effectively a few tens of millions of dollars. If you actually wanted an infrastructure that could actually detect in real time how to give true autonomous self-driving, make extremely complicated decisions and stop on a dime, those were compute problems that you can now basically render costless. And so when those two things come together, it's one of these really transformational moments in our society where you can go after some very big problems that we didn't think were tractable before. And so I'm very excited about that intersection and finding companies that play on those themes. It's an unbelievable boon for America. And it's an unbelievable boon for America's technology sector. The thing is, when you look inside of China, they are extremely good at process engineering. They're also extremely good at additive manufacturing. They're extremely great in things like specialty chemicals. But all of those things, when you think about the precursors, come from American, European, Australian companies that now have a huge incentive to diversify that supply chain away from China. That benefits American companies in a massive way. And so China's response is muted. So for example, we said we are going to slow down the flow of extremely advanced semiconductor manufacturing equipment into China. China's response said we are not going to allow you guys to get the input components to certain silicon wafers that are used in PV cells. I mean, if you had to rank these things, no offense, but we can make solar cells. The equipment that you need to get to 2 nanometer scale in chip design comes from the Dutch, the Germans, and the Americans. And so it's a really interesting moment where this, the game theory optimal view is that China's cost advantages actually get moved over. Right? So the margin decay in China gets replaced by margin expansion in these businesses here that now allow them to operate in parity. So I think it's a really, really unique moment. I'll give you one thing that I can't totally talk about, but kind of can talk about. But there's an extremely large government that we partnered with to create a specialty chemical that's used in the battery supply chain. And this is a 49-51 joint venture between us and them, where they're giving us discounted pricing, we're building the entire supply chain, it benefits from the BIL and the IRA and the CHIPS Act in the United States. That deal would not have been possible 3 or 4 years ago. A, that an organization like ours would partner with the government. B, that deal would be reliable. And these are the kinds of opportunities now that have been unleashed because people want to diversify away from the Chinese supply chain. I think China will do well. I think that they have an incredibly vibrant internal ecosystem, but wherever sort of the G7 can put pressure on the criticality of these supply chains and diversify and force them through subsidies or other things to just be North America or a different set of allies, it's going to create a lot of economic tailwinds for those people that play in that. When I was at Facebook, my team and I were probably the first folks that really commercialized machine learning in the wild. When our first versions of Newsfeed and some other technologies that you guys probably interact with every day essentially was about using machines to guess and to guess better and better over time. So that's basically what this is, just on steroids. And what ChatGPT shows you is just the amazing value in allowing computers to assist you in doing work. It's like a calculator replacing the abacus, replacing a pen and paper. What's important though is this Buffett quote. A friend of mine told me this yesterday, which I loved. He told this story about refrigeration, and the story he tells is that the people and the person that invented refrigeration made some money, but most of the money was made by Coca-Cola, who used refrigeration to build an empire. And I view these large language models as refrigeration. Will there be some money made in it? I think so. But the Coca-Cola has yet to be built. And those are the companies that are really going to monetize it. And in order to monetize it well, here's a basic thing about machine learning that's worth knowing, which is if you take 1,000 of the same inputs and give it to Facebook and Microsoft and Google and Amazon, they'll all come up with the same machine learning model. But if you have one extra thing, one little ingredient that all of those other companies don't have, your output can be markedly different. It's like giving 2 great chefs 3 ingredients, but you give the 3rd chef 1 extra one. That person has the ability to do something very special. So right now we are in the world where everybody is crawling the open web. We're going to move to a world where as everybody gets sophisticated enough, where when refrigeration is widely available, somebody's going to say, you know what, this site, I'm not going to allow anybody else to access. It's only me, only for my models. And those models will become better. And so we have to let that play out a little bit. And so it's going to be a little bit of a really interesting arms race. So the next wave of M&A, for example, could be companies like Google and Microsoft and Facebook looking at these companies saying, can they be viable inputs to my large language models or to my other machine learning and AI models? So you could see M&A activity that drives that differentiation before anything else. So then as a result, for guys like us, early stage investors, we may want to invest in companies that have 0 viable public market potential whatsoever, but is building a data repository that's so unique that we know that it will feed one of these bigger companies and their efforts in AI. And that could very well justify making an investment that we would otherwise not make today, knowing what we know. My most interesting thing right now is I have looked at, and Mike Wilson inspired me to do this. I basically went back and I looked at Google's P&L. And just for shits and giggles, I took all the TAC, the traffic acquisition costs that they pay, and I put it back into COGS and I capitalized it. And I'm like, what's the true PE if you did that? And then I did the same thing for Facebook. Because you hear this constant thing, which is like, oh, this thing trades at 20 times, it's so cheap. Oh, Facebook trades at 8 times, it's so cheap. And it turns out Facebook trades at 19 times and Google would trade at 31 times. And then all of a sudden it's not so cheap. So there's a hot take.
There you go.
Which is when you look at software businesses and you actually capitalize some of these costs and look at true EBITDA, they're not nearly as interesting on a implied yield basis as others.
What do you anticipate with regard to the economy and AI? Post a comment. If you thought the information was valuable, then think about subscribing to and enjoying our modest YouTube channel. Guys, that's all for today. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next.